Hi, this week's experiment was designed to investigate the cardiovascular responses to submaximal exercise using the YMCA cycloergometer protocol, with a focus on how heart rate, blood pressure, and mean arterial pressure, or MAP, change across progressively increasing workloads. The YMCA protocol involves having the participant complete stages of cycling at predetermined workloads, each lasting 3 minutes, with the workload adjusted based on heart rate responses from the previous stage. So for our experiment, our subject was a 21-year-old female, and we started a resistance of 1 kilogram in the first stage, and then we progressively increased each stage by 0.5 until we ended up at 2.5 for the final stage for heart rate versus stage. So basically, blood pressure and heart rate measurements were collected during supine rest. So the patient was on her back on the floor, seated rest in the bike, and then during the final stage, or the final minute of each exercise stage, so we could capture the responses of the cardiovascular system dynamically as they were happening. During the experiment, MAP exhibited a clear upward trend, as you can see in the graph, increasing from approximately 75 millimeters of mercury during supine and seated rest to around 95 millimeters of mercury during the higher intensity exercise stages. This increase reflects the normal physiological response to exercise, in which cardiac output rises faster than total peripheral resistance decreases. Analyzing our data, it shows that heart rate was the primary contributor to this rise in cardiac output, also the rise in MAP, because it increased from 74 beats per minute at rest to 84 beats per minute while seated on the bike. Yeah, and then it increased sharply across the YMCA stages, and it reached 105 in stage 1, 136 in stage 2, 145 in stage 3, and 155 in stage 4, which was where it peaked. Exercise stroke volume likely increased as a result of greater venous return and greater myocardial contractility, which both of these, along with the rising heart rate, cause cardiac output to increase. As exercise continued to get more intense or the intensity continued to rise, stroke volume probably plateaued because of the reduced ventricular filling time at higher heart rates, meaning that further increases in cardiac output were driven mostly by the continued increase in heart rate. For our second graph, we did map systolic BP and diastolic BP versus the stages. So basically, total peripheral resistance decreased during exercise because of the vasodilation in the active muscles and all reasons. But this reduction was not enough to counter the large increase in cardiac output. So that's why there was a net increase in MAP, and the progressive increase in MAP, which can be seen in the graph, observed cardiovascular system has coordinated adjustments that it makes during submaximal exercise. As we saw, heart rate and stroke volume combine to increase cardiac output, so you can maintain adequate perfusion of tissues despite the changes in vascular resistance. These results confirm that during submaximal exercise, the cardiovascular system does adapt, primarily through increases in heart rate and stroke volume in the beginning, and then that allows for a rise in the cardiac output, and that's the main factor that elevates MAP across progressively higher intensity workouts. So the data definitely align with the physiological ideas that we learned in class. So it aligns in illustrating how heart rate, stroke volume, vascular resistance all interact to regulate blood pressure and ensure that the body has enough oxygen delivery during exercise.